There's a moment, so subtle you almost miss it, when the noise quiets, when the reaching stops, when something in you exhales not because you finally arrived, but because you finally remembered what it feels like to be home in your own skin, to belong not to a version of yourself you're building, but to the being you've always been beneath the stories. You think you're becoming someone new, someone better, clearer, stronger, but truth whispers in the quiet. This isn't creation. This is recognition. You're not layering on more. You're peeling back what was never yours. Every self-doubt, every forced identity, every energetic mask, slipping off. And what's left? You. Not a new you. The true you. I used to think transformation was about striving, about collecting better thoughts, higher vibrations, polished routines. I didn't know that the truest becoming comes not from building, but from unraveling. That the newness I was chasing was actually ancient. That the future version of me I kept trying to reach was buried, not distant, hidden in plain sight, under layers of survival, of conditioning, of inherited noise. The nervous system remembers even what the mind forgets. It holds every moment I silenced my intuition to be accepted, every time I squeezed myself into someone else's expectations. And it also remembers something deeper, the pulse of truth before the performance, the hum beneath the hustle, the original signal. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. But how can you become what you are if you've forgotten the frequency? This is where remembering begins, not with thought, but with sensation, with breath, with stillness, with the holy pause that says, I no longer need to earn what's already mine. Can you feel that? That gentle ache when something inside you stirs, not with ambition, but with recognition, like seeing your reflection clearly after years of fogged mirrors, like hearing a song you forgot you loved, but your body still knows every note. That's the soul's memory, and it doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in resonance, in shivers, in tears that come before you have words. You're not becoming better. You're returning to the blueprint of your being. We talk about the new you, like it's some distant, upgraded version. But what if the most radical shift isn't change, but coherence? What if alignment isn't effort, it's remembrance? The moment the heart and mind stop fighting. The moment the body feels safe enough to relax into its own knowing. The moment you stop trying to fix yourself and instead begin to feel yourself. Deeply, honestly, reverently. You were never broken, only burdened. With beliefs that weren't yours. With patterns that protected you once, but now only delay you. The new you isn't built through hustle. It's uncovered through softness, through the kind of quiet that lets the nervous system exhale, through choosing safety over speed, presence over performance, frequency over force. You're remembering what power actually feels like. Not loud, but grounded. Not dominating, but magnetic. That kind of power that doesn't need to convince anyone, that doesn't need to prove. Because it is pure presence, the essence of embodiment. You walk into a room and everything shifts, not because you tried to shine, but because you stopped dimming. That's the real shift, not doing more. Remembering who you are when you stop pretending to be less. And when you do, reality bends. Timelines collapse. Not through willpower, but through resonance. Not by chasing outcomes, but by becoming the signal that draws them in, effortlessly. Because energy doesn't lie, and the universe responds not to your words, but to your coherence, to the frequency beneath your thoughts, to the version of you you've finally stopped apologizing for. Let yourself remember. Let your cells speak. Let your breath guide you back. Because the new you isn't new. It's just the you that's finally been set free. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with awakening, not the kind that breaks you, the kind that clears you. Like walking through your old childhood home and realizing how small the rooms really were. How many things you believed were walls were only shadows. You thought you needed to become someone else, to fix, to force, to improve. But the truth? You were only ever trying to feel safe again. Safe enough to let your light lead. Safe enough to feel joy without guilt. Safe enough to trust your body's yes and honor your sacred no. When safety returns, so does memory. A deeper memory, not of moments or facts, but of essence. The feeling of being fully alive in your own presence. That's what was buried. Not your potential, not your dreams, but your permission. And when it rises, so does your reality. Because you don't magnetize what you want. You magnetize from your nervous system's state. When you feel safe to be seen, the world reflects that safety. When you feel worthy of softness, synchronicities flow. When you surrender the identity built for survival, your soul starts to speak, clearly, loudly, undeniably. I remember a day, quiet, uneventful, when I simply sat on the floor, sunlight on my face, and for no reason at all, I wept. Not from sadness, from arrival, from the sudden knowing, I am not lost, I am just no longer hiding. And that knowing, it rewired something in me. The need to strive dissolved, the ache to prove quieted, and in its place, peace. Not the performative kind, the peace that hums, that holds, that reminds you that the new you was always inside you, waiting to be welcomed. We try so hard to change with our minds, but the shift happens deeper, in the gut, in the breath, in the moment your shoulders soften and your belly releases, and your heart opens just enough to say, maybe I don't need to control this. Maybe who I am is already enough to carry the vision I see. Not someday, not when I've earned it, but now, as I am. That's when alignment snaps into place. Not like a lightning bolt, more like a remembering, subtle, warm, undeniable. Embodiment doesn't shout, it hums. It ripples out in the way you speak to yourself, the way you move through space, the way your energy lands before your words do. It's not about fixing your posture or perfecting your morning routine. It's about coming home to the body as messenger, the body as tuning fork. When you let your body lead, you stop needing to convince the mind. You stop needing to explain your worth. You become the evidence of your becoming. What if you stopped asking, how do I get there? And started asking, what inside me already knows the way? Because something in you does. It's been waiting patiently beneath the noise, beneath the identities you borrowed to feel loved, beneath the performance you learned to survive. That part of you doesn't need instruction. It needs permission. Permission to feel. Permission to rest. Permission to rise, not with force, but with frequency. You're not remembering how to become someone else. You're remembering how to become again and again, into who you've always been. And this kind of remembrance isn't intellectual. It's visceral. It's the tear that comes before the explanation, the deep breath before the clarity, the full body yes that echoes louder than doubt. You know this. You've always known. It's just that now, you're finally listening. And as you listen, you rise. Not as a new version, but as the unveiled one. The one who no longer confuses safety with shrinking. The one who walks not ahead of their truth, but inside it. That's not reinvention, that's resonance. And resonance, beloved, creates reality. We think healing is about adding more light, more love, more positive thoughts. But real healing is often the opposite. It's the brave act of standing still as the darkness rises. Not to fight it, but to recognize it. To see what once protected you and say, thank you, but I don't need you anymore. It's the moment you stop running from your own reflection. The moment you allow the old layers to fall, not with shame, but with reverence. Because every mask you wore kept you safe, until it didn't. And when they fall, when the noise fades, when the habits unravel, what's left is not emptiness. It's presence, that rich, undeniable presence of your truest self, waiting underneath. And here's the paradox. The more you strip away, the more whole you feel. Because wholeness isn't more, it's less. Less hiding, less pretending, less forcing. Just you, bare, bold, and breathtaking. You don't need to earn your transformation. You need to feel it, to let it pass through your cells like a memory long buried, to let it crack you open in places you once kept sealed, because that's where the truth lives. Not in the parts of you that are polished, but in the parts that are real, messy, honest, sacred. There's a moment in every shift where it feels like loss, like letting go of a skin you forgot wasn't yours, and you may grieve. Not just the identity, but the stories it carried, the version of you that worked so hard to be enough. But grief isn't a step back, it's an opening, a softening, a sacred doorway to the self you forgot. And as you pass through, you don't become new, you become free. The frequency of freedom doesn't roar, it glows. It flows through you like warm honey. It radiates in the stillness of someone who no longer chases, who no longer needs external proof to feel internally aligned, who doesn't speak from effort, but from embodiment. That's when you know you've remembered. Because your energy speaks before your mouth does. Because your presence does the work your words never could. This is where the magic lives. Not in future timelines, but in present coherence. When your heart and your breath and your being are no longer at war. When your nervous system relaxes enough to receive what was always meant for you. Not from hustle, from harmony, not from force, from frequency. And this is why your remembering is the most powerful manifestation tool you have. Because it's not about learning a new formula. It's about clearing the static so your original signal can be heard. And when it is, the universe responds. Instantly, accurately, unmistakably. Because it's not responding to your words. It's responding to your field. And your field doesn't lie. So ask yourself, not, who do I need to become? But, what in me is ready to return? What have I silenced that now wants to sing? What part of me is done with performance and aching for presence? That's where the shift happens. In the honesty, in the softness, in the radical remembrance that nothing outside you can replace what already lives within you. And when you feel that, when you truly feel it, the chase ends, the doubt quiets, the striving dissolves. You stop trying to become new because you see it clearly now. The new you is just the you that's been waiting, waiting for your trust, waiting for your yes, waiting for you to remember. It was never about becoming. It was always about returning. There's a sacred intelligence inside you, older than your name, deeper than your thoughts. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in energy, in instincts, in sensations, in those subtle nudges that say, this is truth, before your mind even catches up. That intelligence is your original self, the one that remembers before the programming, before the proving, before the protective patterns formed around your light. And when you reconnect with it, manifestation stops being a strategy and becomes a remembering. You don't need more tools, you need more trust. Not the kind of trust you force, the kind you feel. In the way your body softens when something resonates. In the way your chest expands when you speak from your soul. That trust is coherence, and coherence collapses time. Not because you're speeding things up, but because you're no longer resisting what's already aligned with you. Every time you regulate your breath instead of react, you remember. Every time you choose presence over panic, you remember. Every time you say no to what drains and yes to what delights, you remember. This is what it means to live from alignment, not to avoid the chaos, but to stay connected to your essence within it. That essence is your access point, your home frequency. And when you're in it, you don't chase timelines. They come to you. We live in a world obsessed with becoming, with upgrading, with achieving. But your soul doesn't care about optics. It craves resonance. It wants to feel itself fully, without distortion. And that happens not through perfection, but through honesty. Through choosing the path that feels like truth, even if it looks unfamiliar. Through embodying the identity that no longer seeks permission to exist. Identity isn't just who you say you are. It's who your nervous system believes you are. And that belief is shaped by repetition, by the environments you allow, by the stories you replay, by the emotions you normalize. So when you shift your state, not just once but daily, devotionally, you begin to remember, not conceptually, energetically, physically. You begin to embody the self who no longer reaches, because they've remembered they already are. And here's the paradox of embodiment. It's not about holding a high vibration at all times. It's about being so safe within yourself that even when the fear arises, you don't abandon your truth. You stay, you breathe, you choose again. That's power. That's presence. That's the remembering that rewrites timelines. The new you isn't waiting at the top of some future mountain. It's sitting beside you now in the quiet spaces, in the micro moments, in the way you speak to yourself when no one's watching, in the way you choose rest without guilt, in the way you trust the unfolding even when logic says rush. That's not laziness. That's deep energetic intelligence. That's knowing your vibration shapes reality more than your velocity ever could. Let yourself remember that. Not with your head, with your breath, with your being. Because remembering isn't passive. It's devotional. It's choosing resonance over reaction. It's choosing coherence over chaos. It's choosing to anchor into who you are, so reality has no choice but to mirror it back. And when it does, it won't feel like a surprise. It will feel like recognition, like, of course this happened, because your field became a match long before your mind understood, because your identity aligned with the frequency of your future, by finally becoming safe in your present. That's the art. That's the shift. That's the truth. You're not becoming someone else. You're remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. There's a moment, not loud but life-altering, when you realize nothing outside of you is coming to save you, and it never needed to. Because everything you were waiting for, the clarity, the love, the freedom, the magnetism, was encoded in your being all along, not as potential, but as memory. Memory stored in muscle, in breath, in silence. And when you tap into that remembrance, manifestation becomes less about changing your life and more about allowing life to respond to your truth. This is where the shift moves from mental to magnetic, where your energy starts to speak louder than your effort, where you stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "What do I need to become safe to receive?" Because frequency doesn't lie. And no matter how many affirmations you speak, if your body is still bracing for rejection, the signal is scrambled. The invitation is clear. Make safety your strategy. Make embodiment your practice. Make coherence your compass. When the nervous system feels safe, the soul gets louder. Not louder in noise, louder in clarity. The pull becomes unmistakable. The path, less chaotic. You no longer waste energy trying to force things into form. Instead, you become the kind of presence that things naturally form around. That's manifestation not from action, but from attraction, not from doing, from being. Being, in this context, isn't passive. It's potent. It's the energetic stance of someone who remembers who they are, who walks into rooms and doesn't shrink to fit them, who holds their frequency like a tuning fork, letting everything not in harmony gently fall away. That's the kind of presence that bends reality, because it's not pretending, it's not hoping, it's not asking, it's knowing. And that knowing, it doesn't need validation, it doesn't need speed, it only needs alignment. And alignment, contrary to what we're taught, doesn't always feel like bliss. Sometimes it feels like loss, like shedding, like standing still while everything that isn't true falls away. It's the emptiness before the expansion, the sacred pause before the timeline shifts. And in that stillness, you'll be tempted to fill it, to rush back to old identities, to grasp for old frequencies. Don't. Stay. Breathe. Let your nervous system acclimate to the new altitude, because this is where you remember your power, not through movement, but through presence. When you stop resisting the in-between, you start magnetizing the inevitable. You become the timeline. You stop asking when and start embodying now, because time is not linear. It's responsive, and it bends for coherence. It rushes to meet resonance. So when your field becomes the frequency of your future, the future becomes now. You are not lost. You are layered. And every breath you take with intention peels back what was never you, until only truth remains. Until only your real signal is left, undistorted, unashamed, undeniable. And that signal? It's not just heard, it's felt, in your presence, in your gaze, in your yes and your no, in your boundaries, in your softness. That's the paradox. The more you remember, the less you need to explain. The more you embody, the less you need to chase. The new you is not new. It's the you become when you stop forgetting. So let yourself forget the noise. Forget the formulas. Forget the pressure to be more. You are not here to build a better version. You are here to become again the original. The one who leads from knowing, not needing. From essence, not ego. From frequency, not force. There is an elegance in returning. A kind of sacred simplicity that wraps around you like a long-forgotten melody. When you remember, truly remember, you stop trying to control what's already designed to unfold. You stop micromanaging the miracle. You stop trying to earn the love, the abundance, the alignment, and instead you become the space where it lands naturally, like breath, like sunrise, like gravity. It doesn't come because you chased it. It comes because you cleared the interference. And what is interference? It's the clutching, the overthinking, the hypervigilance that comes from old wounds whispering, "It's not safe to be you." But those whispers aren't truth. They're echoes. Echoes of past timelines where you had to shrink to survive. But survival isn't your home anymore. Safety is. And from safety, you don't just remember who you are. You become it. Your body knows the way. It's the portal, the signal tower. When your body feels seen, your energy stabilizes. When your energy stabilizes, your field clarifies. And when your field clarifies, manifestation speeds up. Not because you're working harder, but because the universe finally knows where to find you. Not the scattered, striving version. The true, steady you. The one who no longer second-guesses her worth. The one who no longer performs her power. She embodies it. There's a moment in this process when everything feels quieter, not empty, sacred. Because when the old noise dissolves, you realize how much space truth actually needs to bloom. Not rushed, not demanded, just allowed. That's when the remembering gets deeper. You realize your worth was never about what you could produce, or how much you healed, or how high you could vibrate. It was always about your willingness to be present with what's real. Real doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels raw, exposed, tender, but it's clean, it's alive, and most of all, it's magnetic. Because reality responds to realness, not to performance, not to the mask, but to the steady, unshakable frequency of someone who's remembered. I am not here to be impressive. I'm here to be true. You start to notice the shifts. Subtle at first. You don't need to force conversations anymore. The right ones find you. You don't hustle for opportunities. They rise to meet you. You don't shrink in rooms that once triggered you. You soften, and the room shifts instead. This isn't magic. It's resonance. It's physics. It's the observer effect in motion. Your internal coherence reorganizing your external experience. And that coherence is cumulative. Every breath taken in alignment, every choice made in safety, every no said without guilt, every yes that feels like expansion, all of it builds the signal, all of it strengthens the remembering, until one day you look around and realize, this life feels like mine, not because it's perfect, but because it reflects the self I no longer abandon. This is the quiet revolution, the inner uprising, not loud but permanent, not flashy but undeniable. You walk differently, you speak differently, you receive differently, because you're not trying to hold it all together anymore. You're letting it all come together around who you really are. So keep returning, not with effort, but with devotion. Keep choosing what feels like truth in your bones. Keep softening the armor. Keep remembering. The new you is just the you that was always waiting for your trust, your breath, your yes. There comes a moment where the remembering becomes effortless, not because you've mastered it, but because you've become it. The frequency lives in you now, not as a practice, but as a presence. And when you walk from presence, life no longer feels like something to conquer. It becomes something you co-create. Every interaction, a mirror. Every trigger, a message. Every desire, a sacred instruction from your future self, not pulling you forward, but pulling you deeper, deeper into resonance, deeper into safety, deeper into self. You realize manifestation was never about getting more. It was about getting closer, closer to your signal, closer to the version of you that no longer abandons your body when things get hard. The version that doesn't bypass the pain, but breathes with it, holds it, moves through it as the initiation it is. Because every layer you meet with compassion is a layer that no longer distorts your frequency. And that clarity, that's your magnetism. Magnetism isn't about being more. It's about being clean. Clean in energy, clean in boundaries, clean in truth. You're not trying to attract from your wounds anymore. You're allowing your wholeness to speak. And wholeness whispers. It moves like water. It draws without effort. It teaches without talking. That's the kind of power the world feels but can't quite explain. That's what happens when you stop trying to become and simply are. And when you are, When your field is clear, you stop waiting. Not because you're impatient, but because you know it's already done, already aligned, already on the way. You stop measuring your progress in days and start feeling it in moments. In the breath you didn't rush, in the reaction you rewired, in the new identity you chose, again and again, until it stopped feeling new and started feeling like home. This is where the embodiment settles in, where the external begins to reorganize, not because you pushed, but because you stopped pushing. Because you trusted the physics, the vibration, the field. You stopped treating the universe like a vending machine and started treating it like a mirror, a living, breathing echo of your coherence. And you begin to notice how differently you move now. Not with urgency, but with authority. The kind that doesn't come from control. It comes from congruence. Your inner and outer selves finally match. And that congruence makes you unmistakable. It makes you inevitable. People feel it. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. Your presence changes rooms. Your energy invites alignment. And not because you're performing, but because you're remembering out loud. You're living as evidence that the truest power comes from softness, from being the one who no longer chases, no longer fights, no longer hides. And you realize something else. Maybe the whole point was never to become someone else. Maybe the whole point was to come back to the self that was buried under conditioning, survival, and noise. Maybe your evolution isn't about adding more light, but about clearing the dust from the light that never left. So you keep choosing it, breath by breath, choice by choice, letting your frequency speak louder than your fear, letting your remembering be the prayer that reshapes your reality, not through effort, through essence. And now, in this moment, not some distant future, not some higher plane, but right now, you feel it. That subtle, steady knowing rising from within. The remembering is no longer just a whisper. It's a rhythm, a pulse. The way your breath expands without being told. The way your heart softens without a reason. The way life begins to echo your truth without needing proof. Because embodiment doesn't require validation. It radiates. You walk a little slower now. Not out of hesitation, but out of presence. You listen not just with your ears, but with your entire field. You feel people's energy before they speak. You sense what's aligned before it manifests. You no longer need signs, because you are the sign, the evidence, the expression of a life remembered, not just mentally but vibrationally. This is the new you, not because she's never existed, but because you've stopped resisting her. You've stopped outsourcing your worth. You've stopped contorting to be chosen. You've stopped postponing your power for some perfect moment. And in that stopping, you started. You started living from the inside out, loving without losing yourself, choosing without justifying, creating without gripping. And the world responded, because it had no choice. It always mirrors your dominant frequency, not your desires, not your affirmations, but your embodiment. And now the embodiment is real. It's anchored. It's not something you practice. It's something you are. Not sometimes, not when you feel high vibe, but always. Because remembering isn't a peak moment. It's a daily devotion. You remember when you rest. You remember when you honor your limits. You remember when you let silence speak louder than strategy. And in those quiet moments, something powerful clicks into place. You're no longer becoming worthy of your vision. You're becoming compatible with it. You're no longer chasing alignment. You are the alignment. And that shift, it changes everything. Opportunities don't just show up, they fit. Relationships don't just excite, they support. Miracles don't just arrive, they land, because you're finally home enough to receive them. No more self-sabotage, no more energetic mixed signals, just clear, coherent, embodied signal, received, recognized, reflected. So what now? You live, not as someone becoming, but as someone being. You let your joy be loud and your rest be sacred. You let your intuition lead and your logic follow. You let yourself take up space, not to prove anything, but because your essence is permission enough. And when fear arises, as it will, you don't collapse. You remember, you anchor, you return, again and again and again. Because the new you isn't new. She's ancient, she's original. She's the one who held the blueprint all along. And you're not here to earn her. You're here to embody her, to become the living memory of your own light, not from effort, from essence, not from striving, from surrender, not by doing more, by remembering more deeply. And so you walk forward, not into the unknown, but into the remembered, into the field you were always destined to meet, once you stopped forgetting who you are.